So he's there, the warthog is there, and he's licking his chops and watching. And you've had something to eat. What did you eat? I want to know what it is as well. I'm going to go back. I'm sure he'll go back to those fur or feathers or whatever it is down there. It looked like fur, and I think maybe a little duiker is what my kind of feeling is, or a scrub hare. He doesn't look very full, but definitely had some sort of meal, and you can see now he's not really interested in that warthog. The warthog's drifted a little far from where he is, and so I think he's going to let the warthog go. I see the warthog is now starting to go down towards the Mulawati, and well, little Tumba is now starting to groom himself. So let me go forward for you, Senzo, so that you can see better than what you're seeing currently. There we go. So you can see a bit of grooming happening, which is very common after a leopard has a kill. They will groom themselves. They are quite meticulous cats. They like to make sure that they are nicely clean and groomed. And look at the size of his front paws. His paws are so big. When you find these tracks, that's the other thing about him, is that his tracks are slightly bigger than Hosanna's already. So that's why I was saying it. I'm sure it is him. But now that we can see him, it is most definitely Thamba. Women, you say you look so healthy, you're so glad to see. Well, it's amazing, isn't it, that our two young boys, and even, you know, Shongile, the three of them, and he seems to have been left quite early as well by Thandi. It seems as though she's not coming back for him at this stage. We haven't had any sign of Thandi. There's been no tracks coming back to this area looking for him. And so it's amazing how these three young leopards have really done quite well. I know we haven't seen Shongile in a while, and I know everyone's a little worried about her, but I'm sure she's just flying low and is just taking it easy. But the two boys have been absolutely phenomenally good in looking after themselves. They both are looking healthy, big, and really well fed, and so it seems as though they're finding their way in life fairly well, which is great news for us. And you can see why he's tough to find here. Look at that camouflage. Now that he sits down, he's really in plain sight, but well, there he is. He's just sitting around right there, and we were able to kind of find him. So it's difficult when you're driving around here and you're not really sure where he is, or even walking, because you'll walk right into a leopard like that without even knowing. But I'm going to reposition for you, Senzo, because I know it's not easy with all this grass in his face. There is a little track that goes in here, so we can just quickly go through. We won't hit any branches, which means we shouldn't scare little Thamba in any way whatsoever. Of course, he also just ran right past the car. He's not really too fazed by us at all. So if we just go in here, we should give him more than enough space and still be able to see him really nicely. Hello, boy. It's good to see you. You've been giving us the runaround this week. Maybe he heard me say that he needs to perform. He almost heard us say that Hosanna's outdoing him, and he's like, you watch this. I'm going to come prancing out like a show pony and show all of you just how much I can do as well. So maybe he's slightly jealous about Hosanna's bravery and Hosanna's hunting prowess over the last few days, and so he's decided to show himself as well. Now, I believe a lot of you are super happy that we're seeing Thamba and that our cat streak is continuing. Well, yes, I think we can officially say this is a better cat streak, or cat sort of notch in the belt for our cat streak than what the Birminghams were, because the Birminghams were almost not visible. David, you say my leopard instinct is amazing. David, not really. It's just a pattern that's developed with Thamba in this particular section, and half of what we do out here is just recognizing that there is some sort of a pattern going on, and that there is an area that they like to inhabit. And so it's part of the reason why I came down here, is for the hope that he would be around Nyala Road South or the Spaghetti Junction area, which he's been for the last few days, or weeks should I say. And so it's just recognizing that he's been around. It's not really an instinct, it's more just a kind of, he's spent time in this area, and so why not give it a shot. Once we find the tracks, and those tracks were quite fresh, it was fairly easy from there. We just followed the tracks pretty much straight to where we ended up finding him. So it's just one of those things. Like I say, there's a bit of element of luck in it. I mean, there's been how many days that I've driven around here where there's been Thumba's tracks and I haven't found him. It's been quite a few lately. So, you know, it's sometimes takes a bit of a time, and our success rate is almost like the success rate of a leopard hunting. You know, if I think about the amount of times I've tracked Thamba since I've been back from leave and how many times I've found him, is probably not a very high percentage at all. It's just that we've been lucky with other leopards that have given us a chance to kind of go to them while we haven't had success with him. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's more just a pattern that's developed lately, and it's just noticing those things. And the really good trackers that I've worked with, that's how they work, is that they'll sometimes even leave tracks that are going in a certain direction, and they walk straight to a place that they think that leopard's going to go, and generally they're right. And that's the really good ones. So they've worked out how this cat likes to move, and because they track them so often, they understand their movements and understand what they're looking for and what they want, and that's how they head into these areas. Now, of course, I need to radio this in at some point because other guys were quite interested and were trying to listen to me and understand what was going on. So I just need to let them know. Rex. We've located Tumba, if you're interested. He's static here, just on the western side of Spaghetti Junction. He did have a bumper, but I think it's finished now, but I'll keep you updated. So there we go, we just need to let those guys know. So the thing is that there's quite a few guys that are looking for leopard this morning. Obviously the Lions took preference to start because it's the 4 Birminghams together, but now that we've found little Tumba, the guys I'm sure will start coming this way. And also it's just to clear our conscience. We don't want anybody to bump into us while we're with the leopard and to think that we're hiding things from them. At the end of the day, we all help each other and we all make sure that we are trying to kind of give everyone the right updates. Now, while little Tumba grooms his feet and looks after himself, let's go across to Brent Leo Smith, who's with his binoculars again.
Well, welcome back. We're still riding the ridges, trying to find some of these kitty cats. But at the moment, no luck, just lots of very relaxed antelope and ungulates. Come on, guys. So we had some lions in this area yesterday. We had a big pride of lions last night, or this morning actually, but they gave us the slip at about 4 a.m. or just before 4 a.m. They went into a forest and also into an area that is littered. It is literally Gremlin HQ. There's so many that live there, so we let them go into the forest and we couldn't follow them, unfortunately. That was just to the west of us, up one of these little luggers, a beautiful bit of forest going up the mountain. Now we are tracking something quite scary and quite dangerous at the moment, and of course that is Tayla McCurdy. Hopefully she got up on the right side of the bed this morning. No, I'm only teasing, of course. So Tayla was moving down along the river here somewhere. So our plan is now that we will hand over this area to Tayla, and I think we might even try and make it to the top of Lookout Hill before the end of the safari. A mating pair of lions under this Balanites tree, but we checked there at about 10 to 4. We went there. Looks like some wildebeest heading down towards the crossings. Jacqueline would like to know whether there are any marula trees in the Mara. There are not, Jacqueline. In southern Tanzania there are, but I have not seen a marula in Kenya, come to think of it. But there could be along the coastal belt. Marulas are not fan of high, cool places, which the Mara is. I think we might even spot that dangerous blonde from up here. Let us see. Do you think we're going to spot a dangerous blonde, Dave? Let's have a quick look to see if we can see the dangerous blonde cruising the river. Well, We're going to have to... Oh, maybe. Let's just go a little bit further. Well, this is where the area she told me she was in. And she moved on. You see anything along the river there, Dave? No sign of Madam McCurdy? Okay. No sign of the dangerous blonde. So we're going to send you back to the gorgeous Tumba with Tristan.
Well, little Tumba is still just grooming himself and taking it very easy at this stage. He's not in any way in a hurry. I think he's had his little meal for the day. It doesn't look like a big meal given that he's not massively full. So I think it was just something small that he managed to get. And, well, at least it's going to sustain him and start giving nutrients that he needs. And he doesn't look in any way in bad condition. He's a little slender, but he's at that awkward phase too, where he's going from kind of cub to sub-adult, and so he is going to be a little bit more on the slender side, and he'll then slowly bulk up and get larger as time goes on. But his paws are definitely, and his ears are not looking nearly as big as they used to in relation to the rest of his body. He's starting to at least grow into both of those, which is great news. But while I'm sitting here just now, and while we were away from us, I can hear Kudu's alarm calling straight north of me. So I'm pretty sure, if I had to hazard a guess, that must be Hosanna somewhere north, because he was left going north from Treehouse Dam towards Philemon's Cut Line, and that's where that sound is coming from. So it's coming from around Philemon's Cut Line area. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Hosanna is somewhere that way, maybe heading up towards the dam, which would be quite nice as well. So look out for him this evening. I wouldn't imagine he'll be there today, or this morning, but by this evening maybe he'll arrive in that area. Now, you can see the grooming process that goes on after they've fed. They spend a lot of time grooming their front paws and their facial area, and that's because that's the area that's going to be covered with all kinds of little bits. You'll find that they feed and bits of food and fur and all kinds of things gets on there, so that's why they groom heavily the front paw sections as well as the facial areas, just to try and get that coat back into good condition. At the end of the day, they don't want the blood or any bits to dry on them. They want to be able to get to a situation where they can be nice and clean for when they move around. So nice to sit with this little guy though. He's such a chilled cat, and I don't even think he's looked at us once since we've been here. Even when we repositioned, he didn't really glance at us much. He's just been in his own world, having a little groom and enjoying his little piece of shade that he's tucked himself into over there. He's got a situation where he's now really quite comfortable, and once we leave here, and if he stays in this area, I wonder if he might head back to that carcass. But if he doesn't head back to the carcass and we decide to move on later, I want to go and check exactly what it was that he killed. I have a funny feeling it's a little baby duiker or a scrub hare. That's what my feeling is. I don't think it's anything too big, but he definitely had plucked something. And then luckily we stopped for that, because if it wasn't for that, I think I might have driven right past him. I didn't even notice him until after I had looked at the fur that had been plucked. So it was just a big pile of fur, and that kind of led my eye towards where he was, which is fantastic. But he is grooming himself properly. Stephen, difficult to say. Unfortunately, it's almost the sort of same as how long is a piece of string. In terms of how far he's going to go is all dependent on how far he gets pushed. So if he moves around and other males push him and push him and push him, he might end up going far, or he might end up landing his bum in the butter and getting a territory inside this area. At the end of the day, Mvula, Tingana are on the older side of life, and so there's going to be areas that are going to open up in the next few years, and maybe he just gets lucky and he'll stick around. Sometimes they can move quite far. I've had situations where leopards have gone a long way. So there was a leopard called Matumba, which was one of Safari's last boy that she had. He ended up being a dominant male all the way up in Angama, which is straight line as the crow flies 50 kilometers away. So it's a very, very, very long way away from where we are currently, as opposed to somebody like Quarantine, who's gone from Quarantine just to the east on Torchwood, which is probably no more than a kilometer away, is the fringe of his territory. So, it depends on the males, it depends on what competition he's got, it depends on how he gets pushed, and whether or not once he gets pushed once, if he's going to get pushed multiple times and then separate out. So, really difficult to say where he's going to go and what the average is. There really isn't an average. At the end of the day, they all get moved around in different ways, just depending on the different densities within that particular population and that particular area. So their males might distribute a lot further here in the northern and central Sabi sands due to high density than they do even in the Manuleti, where there's maybe a lower density because of the higher population of lions. So it's just interesting, and there's no real average that's given as to where they go. It's a lot of environmental factors that play a part, like I say, a density of these guys, as well as food, water, prey availability, that will all affect how far they end up distributing from their natal range. Oh, look at those eyes. He has the most striking eyes, and it almost seem to be becoming more vibrant, much like Osana. Osana seems to be getting a lot more vibrance in his eyes, and when I say that, I mean they generally, with leopards and lions, their eyes actually dim a little bit as they get older, so they start off quite brightly coloured and then they get a little bit more dim. But with him and Osana, it almost seems the opposite way around, is that they're starting to almost get a richer colour that's forming, and he really does have very striking eyes. I suppose Hosanna too, now that they're going that more orange colour, is very striking as well. The way that they look when he kind of stares at you is amazing, and particularly at sunset. Hosanna's eyes seem to light up around sunrise and sunset. When they catch that orangey light, they just become that much better. Uni from Saudi Arabia. You say the way he's cleaning himself looks like he has OCD. Well, leopards are meticulous groomers. In fact, they groom themselves for long periods of time. You see most of them doing this. So all of the leopards I've spent time with are like this, particularly after a kill. They'll spend a massive amount of time getting themselves clean, and they are pretty OCD about it. They will clean every little inch of those paws and facial areas and make sure that they don't have bits of meat all over them. At the end of the day, I'm pretty sure they don't want to be covered in it, and they don't want to smell. It also attracts flies, which will irritate them later in the day. So they are meticulous about it, and they make sure that they look good doing it too. So at the end of the day, a leopard's got a reputation to keep up. It's got to make sure that it is one of the most beautiful animals out here, and so they keep themselves clean. Of course, that's not really why they're doing it. Like I say, it's more just to make sure that they get rid of any bits of meat off them and fur, and make sure that there's no rotting flesh on them that will attract parasites or insects, as well as just harden up and mat their fur and make it really just not great. And rotten meat also attracts infection and things like that. So at the end of the day, it's better just to clean themselves up. But here you can see those big feet of Tumbas. They really are massive. His track is quite amazing in comparison to some of the other leopards of his age. Sarah, you're asking if the cats taste while they're cleaning themselves. Well, I would imagine there's a fair amount of taste going on, but it probably doesn't really taste like much. I mean, it's maybe, I have no idea. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a difficult scale to measure whether or not they're actually tasting and what that tastes like, whether they notice the difference of their fur. But I mean, they're not really consuming anything, and it probably just tastes dusty more than anything else after they lie on all kinds of bits of sand and things like that. So who knows really what it tastes like, but I would imagine there's some sort of taste that they pick up. I don't think their tongues are as sophisticated as ours in terms of the amount of taste buds that we've got. I think they have a situation where they're a lot more kind of unaware of the taste, and a lot more tolerant of foul taste. Because remember, these guys will eat 3-4 day old carcasses. As people, we would never be able to stomach that and never be able to enjoy that taste, whereas they don't really worry. So they don't have the taste buds like we do, and therefore they can't taste things as much as what we do. So I don't think it really bothers them too much when they're grooming like this. But I'm not sure. It would be interesting. I don't think it's, like I say, an easy thing to test. If there is actually a taste bud and what they're tasting and what that tastes like. So I think it's obviously a subjective thing to everybody. We all like different things and different tastes, and so I think with them it must be the same kind of thing. So Chastity, you say it's amazing how domestic cats have the same after dinner ritual, even though they didn't kill their dinner. Well, even though they've domesticated, there's still a lot of similarities with cats, and they did come from this sort of background, and all cats like to be clean, and so they spend a lot of time grooming themselves, and it's just part of them. It's the same as why cats will stalk things, and like birds and mice, even in a domestic environment, they will hunt, and so there's an instinct in them that even if you take them out of the wilds and have domesticated them for thousands of years, there's still that instinct, that base instinct that's there that allows them to do such things. Well, you're going to lick off all your fur at this rate. The way he's grooming, he's going to have bald legs. He's really gone to town on his feet. You can see, particularly his pads, he's cleaning up. So he's obviously got a lot of things in between the toes and around the claws, and so he's just making sure that those are getting all nice and groomed. Are you done now? Nope, still got to now do the chest area. That's also another place that the cats do groom a lot. When they're feeding, they do get blood along their chest and sort of throat area, so they will groom there. A little crested Franklin saying hello. Of course, Tumba doesn't seem to worry. Franklin seems to not bother the Tumba. He doesn't seem to really worry about them or hunt them. It's almost like they've become part of his life. Maybe he's seen so many Franklins walking around him as a cub that he hasn't quite decided whether or not he wants to hunt his friends that he made when he was younger. And so he doesn't seem to pay much attention. Hosanna, on the other hand, always stalks Franklins and looks at them with these big eyes like, I want to eat you. Whereas Tumba just kind of stares at them as though, okay, you guys again, and watches them go past. I've seen countless times him sitting there literally watching Franklins walk right up to him and not really even doing anything, not going into a stalk mode or flattening himself in any way, just stares at them. So I don't really know if he considers Franklins to be food, actually, because that Franklin calling now, any other leopard would have stopped and just listened for 2 seconds, but you could see he didn't take a break from grooming at all. He didn't care. He just carried on with his grooming session. But his nose is still very, very pink. It's amazing, because I always think that Hosanna's still got a bit of pink in his nose, but when we look at Tumba, it's a very different nose to what you see with Hosanna. Hosanna's is definitely much darker. It's a very noticeable thing with Tumba, is bright pink nose. It almost looks just like a sort of extension of the tongue when he looks at you. And maybe that's what exaggerates those greenish colored eyes, is the pink nose as well. It just gives him a very striking look. Well, are you having a fabulous time cleaning yourself? It's so cool to be this close to them. You see how he licks and then just grooms over, makes sure he's cleaning the nose, cleaning between the eyes and around the ears. It's amazing how they actually do it, considering, obviously they loner cats, so they don't have the advantage of the cheetah coalitions or even the lions that will sit and groom one another. They've got to do it all themselves, so it's really cool to watch them, the way they go about it and how they actually groom every little bit of themselves, just using different ways to do it. So using their paws to clean over the back of the head and neck area where they can't reach with their tongue, and then they're fairly flexible that the rest of their body is pretty much accessible. So it's quite interesting just to watch. But look at also his markings on his face. Do you see it? He's got really dark, solid black spots. It seems to be a lot richer black than what you see on a lot of the other leopards out here. I don't know why. For some reason his facial area is very dark, particularly those sort of dark areas just below the eyes. It almost looks like he's got mascara on that kind of makes everything appear a little bit darker, even though it's not the case. I mean, you'll find that Hosanna's spots will probably be just as black, but around his face area and just below the eyes there's a lot of dark markings there, and he's almost got like cheetah tear markings that come down towards his whisker line that is quite unique, and it's part of the reason why, like I say, his eyes are so much more striking, because that light colored green with that dark black just really stands out. Now it seems Miss McCurdy, who is out and about, has now decided to join the cat party, and she's got the tawny coloured ones hunting along the plains of East Africa.
We've got 4 young male lions that are stalking. I'm not sure what they're stalking, we can't see. However, Brent has actually just passed us and he's going around the other side to see if he can see what's going on from the top of the crest. Now, we're unfortunately not in an off-road area. Alice, how's our signal and everything looking? Is it good? Are we pixelating? Okay, we just want to check because we do want to do a Facebook Live, but ideally we need Brent on the other side, because if these lions run over the top of the crest and I move, we're going to lose signal. And we won't really be able to see what happens because it's a non-off-road area here, and we've got quite a way to go around the other side. So I think let's just hold off for now. But it's very, very nice. Now, I forgot to ask Brent as he passed who these lions are, and they might be part of the Purungat pride, because we're not far from the area that they like to hang around. And the other day we were down here and we had, I think it was 2 young males, and then we had 2 females as well. You can, Alice. The only problem is that if these, like I said, up and over the crest, we're not going to see the action.
Watermelon.
Okay. Then, Alice. But just understand that I'm not going to be able to move an inch.
Now, unfortunately, Tayla is still battling those gremlins, and it'll be interesting to see what plays out with those lions. So hopefully they can sort out the gremlin problem, and we'll get back to her a little bit later. Little Tumba is still busy with his grooming. He is not finished yet. He's now moved from the front side. He's heading now down towards the tummy and back legs. So it's a full bath this morning. It's not just half-hearted, that's for sure. He's going to give himself the best possible clean he can. And he's not compromising anywhere. You can see he's grooming, but he's also not taking his time. I mean, not rushing either. This is a slow process, and to look elegant, you want to take your time when showering and making sure that every little bit is looking nice and neat and well groomed. So obviously in those years where it's important to have an image. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, leopards don't really care that much about that kind of stuff. Gillian, he's not actually as light as you think. It's just that this morning the light is very bright. He's actually quite a gold cat, but his color won't darken that much. It might get slightly darker, but not very much at all. He's got a very gold, rich colored coat, though. I find Hosanna actually, funny enough, is a bit paler than what Thamba is. It just depends on the light, and it depends on kind of the surroundings. I often find that they reflect a little bit of their surroundings. It's a weird thing to say, but it's almost like the coat kind of darkens in the shadier areas, and obviously lighter when it's in these light grass sections. But he's not going to darken much. No, he'll stay pretty similar to what he is now. But he does have a beautiful coloured coat. It's, like I say, quite gold in colour, whereas I find that Hosanna is a more sort of pale yellow than what Thamba's is. And there's the typical Tumba wide-eyed expression, looking all around. Often does it. It's weird with him. You find Hosanna kind of looks around and doesn't really give that wide-eyed expression. Hosanna often reminds me of somebody who's quite quizzical. He kind of just stares and almost squints his eyes slightly as though he's analysing what's going on, whereas Tumba is this wide-eyed sort of child that looks everywhere, and everything has got to be investigated. He stares up into the trees and stares at the grass, and anything that moves around, you see, there we go, typical. He's a little bit of a breeze and there's a bit of a rustling, and so now he's got to stop and look at the rustling leaves and grasses, and he kind of always is often just staring into sort of nowhere, and it's almost as though he daydreams a lot about what goes on, whereas Hosanna seems to be a lot more analytical of what's happening and kind of squints his eyes and watches a little bit more than what Tumba is. Tumba, like I say, just keeps his eyes wide open when he's looking around. It is amazing how relaxed this guy has become, because I remember when Thandi first had the cubs, when there were still 2 of them, they were impossible. You couldn't get anywhere near these cubs. They really didn't want anything to do with people and cars. And now look at him. He's literally sitting right next to us. He hasn't paid a moment's attention towards us. Are you going to go back to your kill? That would be nice if you do. Oh, look at that face. Is that not beautiful? A little shake. No, now we're going to groom the left side. We haven't done the left side yet, so we need to groom that. But if you look at his legs, it's quite amazing. Look at how strong and thick and powerful those legs are with the big feet at the bottom. They're almost as though he's got the same size feet. There's no thinning of those legs in any way. He's got serious power in there, and that's typical leopard. And then look at that. How can you not love a face like that? He is just seriously one of the most stunning leopards I've seen. He's got such incredible markings, and like I say, he's almost like cheetah-like with those stripes coming down from his eyes. It's amazing when he stops and just kind of looks. Oh, now we're going to eat grass. You are full of entertainment today. Yep, I think we're going to go back towards our carcass. First we've got to bite some grass and make sure that that tastes okay. Then we've got to look around a little bit, and then off to where he had his carcass is where we seem to be heading. I wonder what it is though. I'm interested to see what exactly he's managed to catch. Now he might go sniff around where the warthog actually ran out. Siberia, you're asking if I've ever seen a leopard hunt and catch fish. Now I've seen them staring at them, I've seen them trying, and I've seen them with fish carcasses, but never actually catching one. I know guys that have, and I know people that I've spent a lot of time with that have seen it, but me myself, unfortunately, I've never actually seen them catching the fish physically. I've seen them eating it, but never actually catching it, which is a bit of a shame. I would love to one day witness it. So you can see Tumba is just here right off our shoulder. He's not perturbed by us in any way whatsoever. He's certainly super relaxed about being right next to the car. Are you off again? Yes, I thought you might sit for a little bit longer. Let's go forward. He's heading straight back to where we started this whole process, so hopefully we'll be able to just work out exactly what it was that he decided to eat. Whatever it is, he certainly plucked quite a bit of it. You see, look how he's approaching where the warthog ran out. You see he's looking. I wonder if he hasn't been staring at the same hole for quite some time. He's quite sort of apprehensive about approaching that area, and he needs to be. That warthog is about the same size as what he is when it came out of there, so it's not a easy prey animal, that's for sure, and he's going to have to be quite careful about what he does. Since I'm just going to get that tree out your way. There doesn't look like too much left down below of whatever he was eating, so maybe he won't head in that exact direction just yet. See, look how he's staring into the hole itself. I wonder if there isn't maybe another warthog. Remember I was saying that there are warthogs around Chelapan. Maybe there's some younger warthogs that are in this area. I'm not 100% sure, but he's kind of staring down towards that hole and he's looking around, just checking. Maybe he's hoping a little piglet pops out. And if there is a female that is around this area and he hangs around for the next month, we should start seeing piglets in October, which would be perfect size for him and perfect practice to be able to hone his hunting technique. I love when these flies irritate them and they try latch out to them. They're always so slow. It's much like us as people, you know, when you try and catch flies, you never really anywhere near them. And it's the same with the leopards. They kind of bite at them but don't really get it right much at all. Is that where you're going to lie? Okay. Oh, that is magnificent. There's nothing better than a leopard in the morning light. It really is such a treat when you get to spend time with these guys. They're the most amazing cats, and to spend time with them is really quite phenomenal. You get spoilt by this. It's sometimes kind of have to pinch yourself and remember that it's not every day that you get to see these guys. We've been so lucky lately to see them so much that you kind of have to remember that it's a privilege, and we're fortunate to actually spend time with the spotted cats. They're not an animal that is seen by a lot of people, and there's many people that have done a lot of safaris and never actually seen a leopard. So for us to be able to spend time with a cat like this is very special, and certainly a privilege that we don't sneeze at. Well, certainly I don't at the end of the day. As much as I love finding them. To actually see them and to spend time with them is not, the privilege is not lost, that's for sure on me. But I think that's it for Tumba. I don't think he's going to go back to that carcass. I think the carcass, unfortunately, is done. He's got really no need to go back to it. He seems as though he's fed, and he's now just going to sit here and groom himself. At the end of the day, though, where he is now is not really much shade, so he's going to probably find that the sun will get up, it's going to get hot, and then he's going to try and move into some sort of shade. But for now, he's also just watching this burrow. In case something comes out, he can then use that opportunity to hunt again. At the end of the day, we have a warthog that's come up, but maybe there's more and younger warthogs. And if he's patient enough, we've seen with Mvula and Tingana, when they get older, this is a technique they employ quite regularly, even Anderson as well, is that they'll sit right by these mounds and these holes in the banks where warthogs live. They pick up the scent of it, and then they just sit, and they'll sit the whole day sometimes just watching and waiting for that warthog to come out. And as soon as it comes out, then they get it. And this technique of sitting behind it is generally what they use and what works for them. So all the successful males that I've seen hunt warthogs generally will be either on top of a mound, if it's a mound, or a hole like this, and they sit from behind, and as it comes out, they're literally onto the back of that warthog, and they roll it and then try to get towards the throat area. So he's already kind of learning that process, and while this warthog is probably too big for him, and the chance of him actually being able to get this warthog is probably very slim, it's still a learning curve, and he's still able to practice some sort of hunting technique and work out how to actually do this. So it's all part and parcel of growing up as a young boy, is you've got to have these hard lessons of things like warthogs that can potentially be very dangerous towards you. But I haven't heard any more alarm calls since we've been sitting with him. I've been listening out quite carefully, hoping that we'd hear some more, and maybe, whoever it was heading in this direction, but nothing more from that side of the world. And Thamba hasn't really reacted to anything either, so I think whoever it is must be quite far from this particular section, in the fact that he's not really concerned, although he doesn't seem to be concerned about leopards at all. He's seen him with Hosanna, he was really not that perturbed. There was a bit of growling and hissing, but he didn't seem to be too stressed about the whole process. And even with Tingana, when Tingana rocked up and chased him that one day in the Mulawati, he didn't seem to be too perturbed by that either. I mean, he ran and he kind of moved off and got a bit of a fright, but he wasn't exactly that kind of nervous, and it didn't stop him from spending time in this area. He since has been back, and we've seen Tingana walking in this area a lot recently when he was mating with Kuchava, and he didn't really mind Thumba's presence, so he hasn't had any reason to fear other leopards at this stage. But that's all going to change now that he's going to start growing and getting bigger within the next probably 6 months to a year. The reaction of Tingana to him is going to be very, very different than what it is now, and even Hosanna Thamba are going to start getting a little bit more kind of pushy with one another, especially Hosanna as he becomes this older male and starts to try and forge a territory. Remember, he's 6 months older than what Thamba is. He's going to start getting a little bit more feisty with him, and I think soon they're going to end up in a situation where they're going to chase one another. He's just having a little look and just checking us out. Sometimes the car makes a little squeak or something, and he just has a little glance. Now, this morning we've had some luck with lions, we've had some luck with the leopard. Tayla McCurdy's had luck with lions, but Brent Leo Smith has fallen behind, and I know that's not going to go down well.
Well, welcome back. We went and found the dangerous blonde beast McCurdy, and Joshua has jumped onto her vehicle. So David and I are now going to cross the Mara River and head up towards Lookout Hill, see if there's anything happening in that area. So we're handing over our area to Tayla. Hopefully she has some luck with the cheetah a little bit later. I heard it was spotted back up the road, further to the sort of east, to the north. So she actually changed direction and went back. So hopefully Tayla has some luck in that area. We might have luck with other cheetah on the other side of the river. And of course lots of lions around there. There is still one remaining Notch boy this is his zone on the other side of the river. So we'll see what happens. Exciting times. go again with that. Oh, Oxgold is wondering what is in the bag to our left. Yes, this is part of our... Here we go. It's sugar, hot chocolate, milk, coffee cups, coffee, tea, and the like. And then we've got 1 flask of coffee, 1 flask of hot water, and then a cooler box with other goodies in it. Now, see, I've gone off coffee recently. I've been drinking tea mostly. I won't lie, I did have a coffee just after 4 o'clock this morning. I felt it was needed. But before we went live this morning, I had a cup of tea. Far more civilized, you know. So we're getting quite close to the Mara Bridge, which is where we're going to cross. Jeff is wondering, do Okapi and Inyala ever come to the Mara? Most certainly not. Since both of those species, firstly, like thick areas, one actually only lives in rainforest. The Okapi only occurs between the Cross River and the Congo River in the Congo Basin, one of the most inaccessible parts of the world. Inyala only occur in South Africa, Mozambique and Zimbabwe along the east coast of Africa. So both species occur nowhere near the Masai Mara, and again, definitely not ideal habitat for animals that like thickets and thick bush and rainforest. Okay, so we're about to go through a little dip here, so there might be a few gremlins that reside. Hopefully they'll stay away this morning. Okay, we're going to go through our dip, and the next time you'll see us will probably be on the opposite bank of the Mara River. But while we do that, let's go across to the green-eyed leopard Tumba with the not green-eyed presenter Tristan.
I'm not green-eyed in any way, Brent Leo Smith. It's been a while since I've seen you, but I would have thought that you would have remembered that I do not have green eyes in any way whatsoever. My eyes are brown. But anyway, doesn't matter. Our green-eyed boy is still busy bathing himself. He's still having a wonderful time resting. I think he's enjoying a bit of morning sun and good grooming, and I think he's slowly but surely starting to wind down for his day of rest. I would be very, very, very surprised if we did not find him here again in this afternoon. Maybe he might not be in the exact same spot, but he is going to probably be in this general vicinity again. I think he's, like I say, winding down slowly to have a nice restful day in this spring sunshine. And, well, why not? He's earned it. He's got himself a meal today. He's been able to find some sort of food item. He's groomed himself nicely. And so, well, you've earned your break, little Thamba. Unfortunately, though, for you, you're going to get very hot where you're lying, because he's right out in the sun. You can see the sun is really on him quite heavily, so he's going to have a situation where he's going to probably have to move, and I wouldn't be surprised it's into one of these little thickets where he'll find some shade. But that is the sign of a cat going to sleep. We've groomed, we've eaten, and it's now bedtime. If only these pesky humans that make all these noises would move away, but it's definitely sleep time. LM, you're asking if the big cats would still live a normal life when... Oh, bless you. Did a fly go up your nose? Don't worry, I know how that feels. I had that the other day. It's not very pleasant, Tumba. Don't worry. I reacted the same. But big cats, if they lose their tails, do they live a normal life? Yes, they do. Leopards will be a little, and cheetah, a little different. Honestly, to be honest, never seen a leopard or a cheetah without a full tail. I've seen quite a few leopards with shorter tails, but never without. I think that those two would struggle a little bit more than something like a lion. Of course, lions, I've seen 2 different females with absolutely no tails whatsoever. It almost looked as though their tails were cut off right at the join, and those tails didn't affect those lionesses at all. They were still able to hunt, they were still able to have cubs and provide, and never really looked out of condition. In fact, both those females are quite large, and they were muscular big girls, and they're from the Solana Pride, which is here in the Sabi Sands, and I'm sure there is footage actually from our live drives of both those tailless females. There was the original tailless female, and it's a really interesting story actually, which I'll get into just now because I'm digressing from the original question. But basically, these females survived absolutely no problem. So the lack of tail means that they just adapt and they adjust accordingly, and they might be a little bit more off balance, and it might be a little harder hunting these fleeter-footed animals like impalas and things like that. But you know, at the end of the day, for a lion, and particularly the Solana Pride, they used to go after buffalo a lot of the time, and she just managed fine. I have seen her even hunting impalas and being able to do it. But I was saying that the story is quite interesting. So basically what happened with the tailless females is the original tailless female, she was on a zebra kill in an area of Londolozi, and unfortunately a whole bunch of hyenas arrived and her cubs were there, and she had to try and then defend her cubs from these hyenas as well as this carcass of the zebra. And the hyenas really went after her and attacked her quite badly, and they bit and maimed her around the back area and the tail and the legs, and unfortunately that tail basically got bitten off, and it fell off, and it eventually healed and had this little stubby sort of section to it. She then went along in life and raised quite a few cubs, and even was quite incredible that she took over cubs of a different female to raise them, which is what we now know as the Mangane Pride. Those 4 adult females from the Mangane Pride were the ones that she raised, even though they weren't hers. And it was when the Majinglans arrived and killed their mother, then she looked after those 4 and raised them to adulthood. And that's when we saw her a lot in this particular section, and her name was Bibi. And then later in life, one of her cubs, which was at that zebra carcass the night, the one that she defended and looked after, she was at the zebra carcass with her own cubs, and exactly the same thing happened not far from the original site. So she was also on a zebra, hyenas came in, tried to attack her cubs, and she lost her tail, just like her mother had done when defending her on a zebra carcass in a similar area. How amazing is that? So really weird that the two sort of situations were almost identical in the same kind of areas, and that female was part of the original process, and then later in life ended up being one without a tail as well. Her tail is slightly longer than her mother's. It's only a little stump like that, but it's slightly longer. Her mother's was sheared off pretty much right at the sort of bum area, and she had really no tail whatsoever. But it's amazing that both of them survived. The second lioness, I was there when it happened, and saw her maybe 2 days after this whole process, and she was in bad condition. She had really, her feet were mangled, there was literally bite marks all over her back paws, there was toes hanging off. She looked horrific, and she really struggled. I'm sure she had a problem with infection for a while as well, and she had really a lot of issues, and it really looked like she was not going to make it. But it amazes me how hardy these animals are. Eventually her feet started to heal, and she started to walk a lot better and be able to keep up with the pride, and the bite marks around her back and her tail started to also heal, and then she came right. And it was interesting with her because her tail actually had a piece that was really maimed and was still on. So it was about that long. That was on the end, and eventually that actually rotted and fell off, and then she was left with that very small little stump that we see now. So amazing though how resilient they are. And so for those of you that have been worried about that Nkuhuma female, she'll be fine. She'll eventually, it's going to take a long time, and it'll be months until that wound closes, but she will be okay and she will survive. And I mean, the thing is I've been listening to the updates from the guys that have been seeing the Nkuhuma Pride quite a bit recently in Buffelshoek, and they've been telling me, hello boy, what are you watching? So he's just looking behind us and checking out what's going on. But they were saying that that female is walking fine, she's moving with the pride, they've managed to get a couple meals, and she's in no way got any sort of issues. There's no infection yet, and if there was going to be an infection, it would have already started. So she's fine, she's keeping it clean, and she's getting food which will help combat that infection, and she will probably be okay. So, which is good news. It's, like I say, it's just going to take a long time. I mean, for that to all stitch together and to come together and heal is going to be a long process, and it's going to leave a really nasty scar. It'll certainly make her easy to identify once that scar is healed, because she's going to have a big scar along that hip area, but she should be okay. So Thamba, you had enough of us now. It looks like it. He's almost opening one eye as if to say, can you guys keep it down? It's now time for my nap, and you're making a lot of noise around me. Shame, my boy. Are you tired now? He doesn't know what to do with that front paw either. Davids, they most certainly can pick up vibration in their whiskers. Their whiskers become a huge part of their hunting at night. So as they're moving around, they will actually pick up movements and changes in the grass and vibrations that come through that grass of animals walking. And so even when they're stalking, remember leopards like to leopard crawl and get very low. We've seen it with Hosanna the last few days. As he gets very low to the ground, and in grassy areas, that means that they can't really see. And so they don't want to risk popping their head up to look and be able to then establish what's going on. So those whiskers will be sensory and pick up a movement in front of them, and they can almost paint them a picture as to what's going on without them having to give themselves up and show themselves to their prey source. So the whiskers are important, particularly at night. During the day, not so much, because they'll still be able to see during the day. And the whiskers in combination with the ears are what helps them a lot at night, even though their eyesight at night is very good. Oof, that is one tired kitty now. It's almost as to say, I've entertained you, I've pranced around, I've groomed, I've shown you all my best sides, but now it's time for me to sleep and take it easy and enjoy this morning sunshine. It's almost like he's earned the right for his nap today. Shame, boy. And lots of things going on though. There's a few flies flying around, there's a rustling of the grass with the wind, and if you're Tumba, it's a difficult life, because at the end of the day you are always quizzical and want to know what's going on, so it's difficult for you to let even the smallest gust of wind go by and just sleep. So that's why he keeps kind of popping his head up. Also, he's going to have a tough day of sleeping here. He's in an area where lots of animals move around. There's going to be nyalas and kudus and impalas and various other things that start moving and walking around here, and so he's going to have a lot that's going to distract him. If you can't be grooming again, you've groomed yourself. Like I say, you're going to have bald feet at this rate. Remember that cats do have these hooked, hairy tongues that are very good at removing fur and meat off carcasses. So when they groom themselves like this, they do get a lot of fur. And like I say, he's going to end up being bald if he carries on the way he's going. He's groomed those feet pretty much since we've been here, which has been well over an hour of us being with him. He's been grooming pretty much constantly. Now, unfortunately, he's behind a bit of grass and tufts of grass, but there's no way to get anywhere near him from where we are now. It would just be right up against him, and that's too close. At the end of the day, we've got a beautiful view where we are now, and we've seen him really nicely this morning, and don't want to break that trust that we have with him. You know, we allow him quite a bit of space, and slowly but surely we've built it up that we can spend as long a time as we do and in close proximity, and so driving to where we would get a better view of him now is not going to do anything but just make him a bit more nervous of us. So fortunately, we're just going to have to deal with the grass for a little bit and hope that he does move. I think with the sun beating down on him, I wouldn't be surprised he's going to get up and move into some shade. It's starting to get really warm out here. The temperature has changed in the last 15 minutes. The sun starts to feel like it's got quite a heavy bite to it now, and so I'm pretty sure that our cat is not going to lie in the sun for too much longer. One thing about Tumba though is he does have the most bushy tail. So I was just sitting here now watching the tail come up a little bit in the long grass. It's difficult to see it because it's behind a lot of foliage at the moment, but it is thick and bushy, and every now and then it pops up, and it seems to be a lot thicker than what Hosanna's tail is. And the only other leopard that I've seen that's got a bushier tail than that is Impala, and Impala looks almost snow leopard-like. She's got this massive thick tail, and that's why she got the name Impala. Impala means tail, and so she really has a beautiful big thick tail, but he's also got quite a thick one in comparison to Hosanna, and even Tingana. Tingana's got a very thin tail in comparison to these guys. But look at that camouflage. Imagine if he puts his head down, flat now, and he crouches as though he's stalking. Even in that fairly sparse grass, it would be quite difficult to see him. Those spots really do break up the outline, and particularly in light like this, where it's starting to get quite harsh, and the whites are quite the highlights are quite bright, and the shadows are dark. Those spots really do make them blend in incredibly well, and it is tough to see them in even the brightest of light. So an amazing example. I mean, we saw that the other day with Hosanna. I mean, he was sitting completely out in the open on Twin Dam's wall, and those impalas, they knew something was up, but they couldn't even see leopard because he was sitting so dead still. They just kind of thought it was part of the wall for a while, and only until one really investigated did they spot him. So they are absolute masters of hiding in plain sight. There's a little oriole calling in the background. I can't see the oriole. It would be nice if the oriole came closer, because that's another beautiful bird. And since we're on the theme of yellow this morning and gold colors, the oriole is one of the nicest birds to see in the morning sunshine. They're this bright yellow coloration with this black head and this red beak. They're one of my favorite birds to see. And actually now is a good time for the migratory orioles that we haven't seen just yet. So the African oriole, African golden oriole, and European golden oriole, they should start coming fairly shortly, and hopefully we'll see them. They're birds that do arrive now, so they're actually one of the migratory birds that will be arriving shortly. Now where's this thing calling from? It's right here. Did you see it, Sensor? I also couldn't see it, but it sounded like it called literally right next to us, so it seems as though it's somewhere in these trees just above us. I'll keep an eye out for it. Unfortunately, it's very bright and glary, so I don't know quite where it is, but it sounds like it's calling literally in this tree right next to us. But you would think a bright yellow bird would be easy to see and very kind of noticeable, but for some reason I can't spot it at all. Maybe it's at the back end behind us in the small bush willow that's behind. But it sounds like it's right here, Senzo. Can you also hear it? Where are you? Now, you would think we would be able to spot, if you can spot a leopard, you'd think you'd be able to spot a golden bird, but as you can see, we're struggling. Oh, there it is. I can see it. Yes, in the background there. So it just needed a bit of movement. It's a little bit further than I first thought. It's in the bush willow at the back end there. So straight in from there, Senzo. Might just be battling to see it, but there it is. Bright yellows that I was talking about, that black head, red beak, and listen to that beautiful call. Come on, call for us. It's just such a liquid, bubbly call. I love their call. I don't know why. It's just one of those calls that reminds me of my childhood. They used to call in my grandparents' garden, and I used to spend all my school holidays with them, and used to hear this call every day. And I remember my grandparents, both of them being quite keen birders, and particularly my gran, and she used to love the call of these black-headed orioles, and she could mimic it very well, and she almost used to have these conversations with these black-headed orioles, and it just kind of has a lot of good reminders when I hear their call. So they're one of my favorite bird calls that we have out here, and I always enjoy listening to them. It makes me reminisce of when I was a kid, and when my brother and I used to have these crazy adventures in Sabi. They used to live on this mountain in the area called Sabi, which is where the Sabi River really runs through and comes past, and why the Sabi River is called Sabi. It's right at the town where the source is, and basically they used to live on this mountain up there, and we used to go for these crazy adventures. My brother and I used to go climbing mountains, and we used to go birding, and we used to go messing around in the waterfalls there, and it was a pretty cool life that we led, and really it was quite amazing. And our grandparents taught us a lot about the wilderness and the wild, and particularly birds, and so it's always good memories when I hear this. It always reminds me of all the things we got up to, and my brother and I definitely got up to a lot of naughty things as well while we were there, but we also did some very cool stuff as we sort of negotiated and spent a lot of time outside, which is, these days is a lot more rare, and super grateful that we had that opportunity to spend time out in the wilderness parts of Africa and kind of just walk around and enjoy and have these moments to ourselves. So very special, and we're very fortunate to have grown up that way and not had to just grow up in a city where it's, you don't get the exposure to those kind of things as much. So very, very lucky. Little Tumba still grooming, so not much has changed with him. He's still kind of taking it very easy, and so he's almost like my brother and I were. He's naughty and kind of used to jump around all over the show and then lie down. Now Brent Leo Smith still driving around the Mara. I'm not sure if he's managed to find a cat, but let's go across and see what he's up to.
Across the Mara River. Oh, there's something we don't actually see too often, and out in the middle of the grassland, obviously crossing between two patches of trees. Did you lose them, Dave? There we go. That's not, there we go. Some vervet monkeys, or green monkeys as they're called in East Africa by some people. Obviously moving from the Sand River through to this little forested area to the left. Quite a risky time for the monkeys as they have to cross quite big open patches of grass between the little forested areas. You can see they are very vigilant when they're doing so. Okay, well, the monkeys keep moving, so will we. The wind is starting to pick up quite a lot. Actually, it hasn't got any warmer this morning. See, all these big bumps that we go through are the numerous hippo paths that come out of the Mara River, and some of them are so indented they sort of go down about 5 or 6 centimeters and can make life very bumpy when you cross them. Heather would like to know, what are our favorite animal calls? Dave, what's yours? Dave likes the leopard sawing. I have lots of favorite animal calls. I'm very, very fond of hyena and their different vocalizations. There's some hyenas that sound like they're going on a party. They go woo-hoo. I do like lion, there's lots of wonderful bird calls, tropical boo-boos, white-browed robin chats. So, Tristan's was a black-headed oil. I think, out of bird calls, I'd have to be a Vervet eagle owl. Oh, hello, what have we got here? Some very alert-looking Impala. And they are staring towards, I know what they've spotted. They're looking at the monkeys. That's what they're watching. They're watching the monkeys move towards the forest. So, no kitty cats there. Now, this is a good area for leopard along the edge of these forested areas like this, and I'm hoping we're going to find some. I think I'm going to have a concerted effort to look for leopard and cheetah while I'm on this side of the river for the next few days. Oh, I nearly forgot to tell everyone. Last night, Davy got a first. He saw, for the very first time, a type of predator in the Mara. Dangerous.
Sorry about that, everybody. It seems as though the gremlins are really not on our side today. I'm not having any of it from them anymore, just to avoid the dust. Now, you won't believe what I just saw. I can't believe I just saw it. And we were trying to put it on camera for you, but it unfortunately flew away. I just saw a rosy-throated longclaw, which has been a bird on my list that I've really been wanting to see for a very long time. I actually don't even know if they occur in this area, but it definitely looked like one. It looked like it could have been a female. I just want to get a picture for you so you can try and have a look, and hopefully let me hold it here. Maybe that's a better angle. Just trying to get the right spot. There we go, so you can sort of see it. Beautiful looking birds. Me swipe. Distribution. Doesn't have the whole of Africa, I'm afraid. There's another one. But it was so beautiful. It looked like a female, though. It didn't have sort of as much red. I think here's a female. So it was more sort of this color. It was absolutely beautiful. I was so excited. I was really hoping we were going to be able to put it on screen, but unfortunately not. But a really nice one to add to my list. I'm just sorry I didn't get to do it live. But now that I know that there's one along this road, maybe we'll try and come and pop through here every now and then and see if we can't find it. Now, we've actually had a very exciting morning, Ferg and I, but frustrating at the same time. Those 4 young male lions ended up chasing a warthog. They didn't catch it, though. The warthog got away. Lucky pig. And then there was some topi that were crossing the river. Very exciting. There's lots of zebra and wildebeest all gathering at the edge and big groups of topi. So I think there'll be a crossing down that area a little bit later today. Oh, again, they could turn around and just walk away, and that's what happens so often. But they did start to look like they were getting a little bit on the agitated side, and that's normally the behavior you start to see before they do cross. But yeah, so it's been an interesting morning. I don't even have any pictures to show you of anything. I didn't even take one snap while I was down that end. So we're basically coming back into good signal, well, where this car seems to be able to work. So we'll hopefully find something. Now, Heather, you're wondering about my favorite bird or animal sound. You know, it's so hard to choose one. Every time I answer this question, I choose a different one because there's so many nice calls out there. So I know Tristan said the black-headed oriole for his. I quite like the call of a southern chugra. Let me see if I can play it for you. Just make sure there's no one behind me. Please stop. The brakes don't work on this car very well, so you have to use the gears, and then I almost get the car going. That's wonderful. Okay, let's look for chugra. Let's go to a C. It's quite a nice call. We don't get them up here though. No, it's not with a C, it's with a T. What am I even talking about? All the way down here. Okay, southern. To start it again because my volume was turned down. I like it. All the chugras have got beautiful calls. What about a bokmakeri? Shall I play you that one? That's quite a nice sound as well. It's a bird. I think I played it for you before. And they're also striking as well. They're beautiful birds. Quite easy to get the southern bobo and the bokmakeri call confused. But that's normally the giveaway when they do that duet. But there we go. So there's some of my favorite calls. Mammal-wise, oh, nothing really beats a lion roar, does it? That's, I mean, a magnificent sound of the bush. I reckon that's probably it. And well, speaking about lions having the most beautiful voice out of the mammals, in my opinion, it seems as though Brent has got himself in cast.
Well, we're with a section of the Purungut Pride. Now, the Purungut Pride is split into two quite obvious groups, and this is the group with 2 adult females and 3 sub-adults. We've seen them on Lookout Hill, below Lookout Hill, and we're now probably about 3 or 4 Ks, or maybe not that far, 2.5 Ks to the south of Lookout Hill. Oh, yeah, there are some zebra moving off in the distance there. I wonder if she is going to make a play, but on these short grasses during the day, it can be quite difficult. But they do have a convenient lugger to utilize if they so wish. She doesn't look that interested, though. No, plonk. But they could be a very good bet for this afternoon. Now, I wanted to go have a look. I saw a big male lion lying quite a long way away from them. Actually, we saw the male lion first, and I'm hoping that it could be the last remaining notch. Where was he? There he is. So let's go see the big boy. So it was quite nice. I actually saw him from probably over 1.5 kilometers away, and you can spot lions and cheetah and stuff so wonderfully when the grass is this short. Of course, it makes hunting for them a little bit more difficult. and I just saw this massive black mane, so I think it could be the last notch. I'm not sure which one it is that's still surviving, so if you know, I'd love to know which is the last notch who's still living. Hashtag Safari Live. I'd love to hear what his name is. It's either Notch 2 or Caesar. I think it's Notch 2, but I'm not 100% sure. That definitely looks like a notch to me. Hello, big boy. Having a snooze. Yes, this is a notchy. Hello, big man. All on your own skis these days. They are absolutely magnificent specimens of male lions, these big boys. Dave, do you see the little testicular in the grass? Okay, have a look. Where's he popped there? Tip, tip, tip. Okay, you got him. So there's a little pectoral patch testicular hopping around in the grass. One of the smallest testicular species. Very cute. So Ben is wondering, do lions ever fight leopards? They do. They'll often steal kills from leopards, and if they are able to get hold of a leopard, it'll be a very short life for that leopard. The predators will kill each other to try remove competition. Now, unfortunately, we ran into a gremlin when we were asking you what Davy saw last night. Davy, what did you see for the first time last night? A caracal, yes. Only the second time I've seen one in the Mara, but we saw a caracal on our late night meanderings last night, and it was Davy's first caracal ever. Oof, lazy kitties. He looks quite comfortable. Ross is wondering, are there any lionesses with manes in the Mara? Not that I'm aware of. It is a very, very rare thing, Ross. It doesn't happen often, and it is very infrequent where it happens. But oh, look at all the flies on him. And roll over. Oh, tired kitty. But no, Ross, not that I'm aware of, and I don't know of any maned lionesses in the Mara. Well, he's turning his back on us. We're going to do the same to him. I'm going to keep moving, and as I said, we use the mornings to plan where we're going to go in the afternoon, so we're going to keep rolling around. We're going to leave these lions now. We know where they are. I don't think they're going to move too far today. We're going to go see if we can get any information on the 5 boys, the musketeers, the cheetahs, and Jamie's also coming across to this side of the river this afternoon, so we're going to see if we can make sure we've got lots of potential lined up for this evening. So amazing how the grass is all gone. I mean, there was grass as high, almost as high as the door in this area before. Oh, Temex Corsa, Dave. Temex Corsa. See that little one running, the little golden one, next to the dove, or running past the dove? He's too quick for you, Dave. Dave's still waking up this morning, everyone. There we go. Zoom. No, right. No, there he goes. Oh, Davy. There you go. A Temex Corsa. They do love the short grass. Now we see them in the Sabi sands, but generally only when there's been a burn. But obviously, who needs fire when you've got 1.7 million wildebeest to munch down the long grass? Now I've heard over these valleys there should be thousands upon thousands of wildebeest, so we're going to go see if we can catch up with the migration. And there the lions haven't moved. Bye kitties.
Now, I apologize about that. Brent was just going on and on and on and on, so we decided to just get rid of him. No, I'm joking. Unfortunately, he's lost his comms, so we had to just move away from him. Otherwise, he would have just left him to talk for the rest of his life, which we know Brent Leo Smith can do. Now, we're just down at the bottom. I stayed with Tumba for a bit, and he's sleeping, and I just thought I'd come down and investigate what exactly he's eaten. For those that are a bit squeamish, probably a good time to look away, because there are a few innards lying around, but it looks like a little scrub hare. So he managed to catch what Hosanna failed to do last night, and he's got himself a scrub hare that is now covered in ants and flies and all kinds of other things. So there's going to be lots of little insects crawling all over his carcass at this stage, but there is still meat there, so I wouldn't be surprised he does come back and eat off it a little bit later. He's definitely still got a little bit that he can absorb from that. So good to know that there's still a bit of meat. He'll definitely still be here this afternoon, but we're going to mosey on along. We're going to leave little Tumba to a rest and leave him to his carcass. We thought we'd just show you guys exactly what he has, because it's always nice to know what our leopards are feeding on and whether or not there still is meat to keep him here for the afternoon. It's always good just to investigate these things. Now I've got to try and somewhat get out of here, which is going to be interesting to say the least. Come on. There we go. So Rusty just needed some persuasion. Tumba's still lying back where we left him on the top there. He's just taking it very easy up there. He's not looking as though he's going to move at all for this stage of the day. And well, I suppose if you've got a full-ish belly and you've had a good meal and you've now groomed yourself, no point in moving around and going anywhere. So we'll come back to Tumba this afternoon for sure, spend some time with him again when it gets a little bit cooler, and hopefully he'll be up and moving and doing his thing as he does. I'm pretty sure he will finish off more of that carcass during the day. I don't think he's going to leave it for too much longer, but interesting to see. He's lying pretty much right there, but you can see why we often drive past them in this particular section, because just to my right, if you follow this line straight through, there's basically a line that goes straight through there. That's where he's lying, but you cannot see him at all. Even if I look like this now, I have no possible view of him whatsoever. He's lying just in that grass on the left hand side of that thicket. So amazing, the camouflage, and amazing how easy it is to drive past leopards without even seeing them. Very cool. I think what we're going to do is we're going to just meander towards Twin Dams in case there's something drinking there, maybe some ellies that are around. It's kind of quite warm, so I would imagine that there might be some ellies out and about and moving around. So I'm hoping that's going to be the case, and we'll be able to find some ellies having a little drink. Of course, also, you never know what's lurking at Twin Dams. There can be baboons, there can be nyala, there can be giraffe, there can be, well, imagine even a buffalo. Wouldn't that be nice? No word on the buffalo herd. I don't think anybody went that way, because the mother cheetah and her 3 cubs are on Buffelshoek right in the northwestern corner, and so I think everybody headed that way into the 4 Birmingham, so I don't think anyone's actually checked Sydney's dam at all. So maybe our buffalo herd is back again, which will be interesting. Maybe this afternoon, this is the first place we'll go and check, is try and see if we can find the buffalo herd, and maybe even those wild dogs have decided to settle somewhere on the western side of Djuma. So we'll definitely look around for them. We just got a bit waylaid. That was my plan, was to just come past Nyala Road South and then start heading that direction, but obviously the trucks for Tumba waylaid us completely, and well, who's going to say no to that beautiful boy and spending time with him? Certainly not me. It's going to be another scorching day, though, and Megan says not her either. I'm pretty sure Lou agrees, and well, Senzo does as well. So it looks like it's going to be another scorching day. It feels warm already. It feels like it's going to be really hot again today. The temperature is spiking all of a sudden, and I'm actually going to get rid of this jersey fairly shortly because it is really on the warm side. So it's going to be interesting how this weather affects what goes on, because the dams are drying so fast that if we get another bout of hot weather like this, it's not really ideal. So hopefully it will bring rain though, and hopefully the hot weather will decide to have some sort of influence on the climate. Maggie, you're saying with spring and summer approaching, will we start to see some more bird nests? Most definitely, Maggie. A lot of the birds have already started to nest, and we're starting to notice signs of them already. So we will definitely see birds nesting. The Wahlberg's eagles, and as I speak about Wahlberg's eagles, there's the Wahlberg's eagle with its nest right now. So we might as well, since we on nests and birds and spring and all things migratory, I'm going to go back a little bit. I know it's not going to be a close view of it, but I just wanted to get the nest and the Wahlbergs together. It's a pale form Wahlbergs that is sitting on top there, and there you can see its nest just to the bottom left. So they are starting to nest, and we will see a lot of nesting birds now over the next little bit. These guys generally are the first ones of the migratory birds to nest, and we've seen already some of the lapwings breeding and having nests on the ground. We've had, just trying to think, some of the owls that are starting to kind of mate and I'm sure are starting to think about nesting. There was that lilac-breasted roller in the same tree as Janet Jackson that is also looks as though it's starting to nest. So there are a number of birds that are starting to kind of build and starting to go. So we will definitely see a lot more nesting birds over the next little bit. And there goes our Wahlberg's eagle and off into the distance. I wonder if that's one of them that's part of that drama that we're seeing with the Wahlberg's eagle up near Gowrie Dam, and maybe they've decided to come use this one. So hopefully the two pale forms use this one, and then the pale form and dark form use their normal nest on Wahlberg's Road, and then everybody will be happy. It will certainly make things a lot easier and a lot less complicated. Nest still needs a little bit of work though. It needs to just be fixed up. I'm sure the hawk eagles that used it recently, because there was some African hawk eagles that took over for a little bit, and I think they might have left a bit of a mess, so you'll find the Wahlbergs will just reline it and get it looking in better condition before they carry on and move off and actually start to breed on it again. So lots of work for them to be done. There's some impalas. Yeah, always obligatory impalas around Twin Dams. A Vervet monkey just across the road. Now hopefully the Vervets go up into a tree that I can see them. Yes, there's lots of them here, so quite a number of Vervet monkeys that are running around, which is a very good indication that there is no predator at the waterhole, because you will not find Vervet monkeys so relaxed if there was a predator around Twin Dams. So I don't think Hosanna is this side. I'm pretty sure he's where those kudus were alarm calling. And look at how that monkey is shoving every little bit. It's eating as though it's never eaten in its life before, as though it's being naughty and stealing. What are you after? Whatever it is, it must be tasty, because it looks really like a kid that's been unleashed in a candy store. They're not going anywhere. It's part of a tree. If they're fruits or flowers or anything, they will still be there. You don't need to rush. I suppose when there's lots of other monkeys around, you've got to try and eat as many as you can, as quickly as you can, before everybody else arrives. But it doesn't seem to be feeding off flowers, or I can't see it. It's almost like it's grabbing things off the branch. I wonder if there's some sort of insect that it's feeding on. If that monkey leaves that tree, I might go and just take a closer look, because I'm quite interested to know what it's actually feeding off. The way that it was grabbing at the branches, it didn't look like it was grabbing flowers. The bush willows are flowering at the moment, but that is just very weird. I want to go and have a little investigation, and not that it's a bush willow either, it's actually a leadwood. So I want to just go and have a look. LM, these monkeys and baboons, well, fairly tolerant of one another. They occupy a similar space, although the Vervets tend to give way to the baboons, because the baboons are a lot larger. They tend to give way and let the baboons feed off a food source while they kind of do their own thing. So it's a little bit different in that regard, but they don't really attack each other. There's no viciousness amongst them. So let's have a look. That monkey is just mobile down towards the next tree. So I want to have a little quick look at this leadwood and what they're actually feeding off. Interesting. There is not a seed pod or a flower on this entire tree, yet that monkey was grabbing something, and I'm trying to look along the branches to see if I can see any insects that maybe are walking around, and I can't see anything of that either. What are you guys after? You can see there's a monkey right here watching us in a bush willow. So this is a leadwood that we're right next to us, but that's a bush willow that monkey is in. Of course, they're part of the same family, so you'll find that. In fact, it's also a leadwood. I did a lie. I don't know why I'm calling that a bush willow. The bush willow is behind it, but I can't see what they're feeding on at all. So interesting that there is some sort of food source here that they are after. But while I figure out what's going on and try and look, I believe Tayla McCurdy is driving around in the beautiful scenic Masai Mara and is enjoying some sunshine.
We just had a hyena that was fast asleep in some water, but unfortunately there were just too many cars coming behind us and it just wasn't going to work. So we decided to move off for it, but it was quite funny. That hyena was not moving away from anybody. Everyone was having to go around it. So last night, before the show ended, I found another jackal then, which was very exciting. But unfortunately the gremlins got us, and by the time we managed to get picture again, they'd actually run off. So that's a goal, and we're getting there, but we're still quite a way out. So I'm just watching my GPS because it's in long grass and I'll miss it. I won't spot it with my eyes. I actually just need to use my GPS marker. Just checking for cars, but we'll keep making our way towards where we had seen the jackal there, because it would be nice to see if there's anybody home. It's a different one from the first one that I'd found, and it was quite close to this main road as well, okay, and not in an off-roading area, but you could see it from the road. And theoretically, with all those vehicles constantly coming past, you'd think that they would be relaxed. Especially this road, the main river road. I mean, there must hundreds of cars come up and down here every single day. So hopefully we'll get a sight of them. Lots of elephants around us. It's still very cold though. I mean, there's a bit of cloud cover, but the wind has got a bit of ice in it. So the wind drops. It's actually quite a warm day. Let me just make sure where we are. We get there slowly but surely. But I'm just going to keep an eye out around here anyway, because maybe I get to spot the adults first. But it's on the right hand side of the road. We're not too far away now for the jackal, and hopefully I'll have a jackal surprise for you. Tristan has arrived at a dam that we all like to visit.
I was near there. I've just left the dam now. I'm slowly meandering my way home. There was just the monkeys around, and with monkeys being like that up in the jackalberry even and feeding off those jackalberry fruits, the chances of anything else being around was very slim in terms of predators. And well, I could see from there already that there was no big herbivores around. But here's tracks for another leopard right here. So who is this now? This must be Hosanna going along this way. I think this must be from yesterday afternoon when he went towards Treehouse Dam when we found him there. But this is tracks for another male leopard walking very much on elephant carcass. Although vehicles drove here last night, they came when they responded and came to Hosanna's sighting. They did drive here, and these tracks look like they're on top of vehicle tracks. I just want to have a double check because maybe little Hosanna is also around. No, I think these tracks were driven over. Okay, so that's fine. These are the tracks from yesterday afternoon, so we don't need to stress too much about those. We will have to try and find different tracks for Hosanna if we want to find him this afternoon. Hopefully, it wouldn't be bad if the two of them met up, if Hosanna went towards the Mulawati and him and Tumba were around. I'm pretty sure Tumba at some point is going to want water after his scrub hare meal, so you might find he heads towards Twin Dams today and just meanders his way down there and has a little drink, and then back to his usual spot at Spaghetti Junction, and then maybe Hosanna will also head in that direction, although I have a funny feeling we're going to find Hosanna at Treehouse Dam this afternoon. That's what I'm predicting, is that that's where he's going to be. He's going to have gone out hunting for the night and is going to head back to Treehouse by this afternoon, and we'll find him on the dam wall at Treehouse or around his log that he was lying at yesterday. That's what I'm going to think about for this afternoon's drive, and then obviously Tumba will be in the same place, I think, if he hasn't gone down to Twin Dams for a drink. But these are most definitely Hosanna's tracks. Now, I thought it was beautiful sunshine and very nice and warm in the Masai Mara, but it sounds from Tayla and Brent that it is very cold and very chilly, so let's go across to them.
Okay, guess what we have found? Well, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, and it bodes well for what's to come on this afternoon safari, and of course deep into the darkest African night as we stay out to see what incredible action happens after dark on Facebook. So you must be ready tonight. I think tonight's going to be a busy one, so I hope everyone is ready for that, because at the moment there's not much around us, but as I speed to crest this hill, and I've just been told I'm under time pressure of note 2 minutes 2. Okay, we'll get there before then. As we crest the hill, I spotted them from quite a long distance away. Oh, bumpy. Are we going to make it, Dave? Dave says yes. I'm not so sure. We will. 90 seconds, hold on! Why have you gone flat, car? Come on. Faster. There we go in the distance. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot more over the hill. So from all of us here at Safari Live, we've made it with 60 seconds to spare. And as I said, we've been looking for some of the herds of the migration. Now I'm going to keep heading in that direction to see if there's more on the other side, which I'm pretty sure there are. So we're in the right zone at the moment. So hopefully those 5 cheetah boys are around. Who knows what lions could be about. And of course Malika and her 2 boys have been in this area. So there's potential for lots and lots of fun come this afternoon and into the darkest African night. Of course, it's all very terrible if you're a wildebeest, but if you're a lion or a cheetah, it's very good fun. So from all of us here at Safari Live, it's been wonderful, and we'll see you again in a few short hours to do it all again.